Hello and good evening. Welcome to a live webinar by IMSCIE. And today we have Akshat Magore, and he's going to talk about how he got into Yale DEFRA. Akshat Magore has secured a place in the prestigious Yale Silver Scholars MBA program. Let's have Akshat now in the studio. Hi, Akshat.
Hi, how's it going?
Yeah, great. So let me then start off. How are you doing and how's everything?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm back in India for now. Yeah, just with my
Lovely,
family.
lovely. Okay, so Akshat, here's the first one for you. Tell us a bit about your academic trajectory.
Sure. So, as you know, I'm currently a first year Silver Scholar at Yale School of Management. Before this, so I went here, I got here directly from my undergrad. So before this, I did my undergrad at NMIMS. I did a Bachelor's of Science in Economics, the
Right.
BSc Economics.
Mm,
I've also done my, 12th in Commerce at Bombay Scottish School.
right.
And yeah, while I was at NMIMS, I was pretty involved in the college community, and I've had internships in banking and consulting.
Mhm.
And I also started like my own organization called Uttam Brain Trust, which like works with nonprofits and small businesses.
Right.
So yeah, all of that sort of came together to help me get into SOM. So
Mhm.
I wrote the GMAT, the CFA, stuff like that.
Yeah. So tell us very briefly about your GMAT score. Um,
Right. Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough. I got a 99th percentile. There was a 760 on the GMAT when I wrote it. This was, I think, October 2018.
right.
Yeah, something around then. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, for those of you who are watching this webinar, stay tuned. On 22nd April, Akshat is actually going to talk about specifically about how he got a 760 on GMAT. So stay tuned for that. But today we are going to focus on his Yale admit and what it takes to become a Yale Silver Scholars MBA program admit. So now tell us a little bit. Take us through your journey. How did you shortlist the B schools? For that matter, how did you first? Let's take this question in parts. So, how exactly? What was it that made you decide that okay, I want to do an MBA, but I want to do it internationally, and now let me start looking for the B schools. So, tell us the process.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, an MBA has pretty much always been on my radar, considering I wanted to be in the world of business, and an MBA just makes complete sense.
Right.
I think why I wanted to go international with it, there's two major reasons. One is that business schools outside of India, specifically in America and pretty much the UK as well, they have a very strong international student body.
Right.
At least the top 20, top 50 B schools have a very strong international student body.
Right.
I feel like that was something personally that I would get a lot out of, because until then I had pretty much only interacted with other Indians,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I just wanted to see what it's like to go and speak to people from an entirely different background,
Right.
entirely different country, uh, from a personal growth perspective.
Correct.
Secondly, I also think that going to business school outside can really open up opportunities around the world for you.
Right.
So, you become part of this sort of like a global pool of talent rather than just within India. So it
Right.
gives you a lot more mobility, whether you want to work in the US, the Middle East, whatever it may be. There's
Mm-hmm.
people who go everywhere because there's people who come from everywhere. So you have a much broader network.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think thirdly also it was that in my undergrad, I was able to build on a lot of the sort of soft skills around, the hard skills around business, the quantitative skills and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go to business school outside, you really learn much more about, like, I don't know how to put this, but the conversations around business and how
Right.
people look at things, where there's no one answer. Uh,
Uh,
so that's been definitely interesting, just like interacting with people and building that network.
mhm, mhm. So, how did you shortlist the B schools? As in, did you decide? What was the process like? So, if there is an MBA aspirant who's planning to go abroad, how exactly? Where should that aspirant start off?
Right. No, for sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, it was a little bit different. I'll have to admit, because
Mm,
I was just finishing up my undergrad. So there were,
Right.
there's the Silver Scholars program, which I knew was a good fit for me, particularly
Right.
because I wanted to go directly
Mhm.
from undergrad. Um, and yeah, I think the most important thing though is to really understand what each business school represents and where, I think most importantly, what your career trajectory you want it to be and how previous people from those business schools have ended up.
Right.
So, if you want to do consulting a lot, then you might want to focus more on a business school which has that expertise in consulting.
Mm-hmm.
You want to do something like impact investing, you might want to go to a business school which has more of an expertise in impact investing.
Right.
I think, personally, mainly from the fact that you can really then build up your network within that sector over there.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, I wanted to be in a business school which has a global recognition, and Yale, obviously does.
Obviously.
So it gave me more options in terms of where I want to end up later on. I'm just 21 right now,
Mhm.
so I wanted the option open that I want to move around the world and stuff.
Right.
Uh, and yeah, thirdly, I think you just have to sort of really research the culture of the different business schools and
Mhm.
figure out what's a good fit for you, because I think that's probably the most important thing.
Right. 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 So, so can you tell us a bit about Yale Silver Scholars Program? As in, uh, what is it? How do you start the process? What are the application steps? I mean, essay writing and all that. So yeah, you can just take us through step by step. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Silver Scholars program is essentially one where Yale takes in about 15 to 17 people every year. So just like a handful of people right from undergrad. So
Right.
yeah, yeah. So they take us in from right. You get to go right from undergrad and start your MBA,
Mm-hmm.
do your first year of your MBA, and then you go off to work for anywhere between 1 to 5 years, and then come back and finish up the second year of
Okay.
the MBA. So,
Okay.
the coursework, the people, it's all the same. You're doing a regular MBA.
Right.
The only difference is instead of doing like a summer internship in the middle of your 2 years, you're really doing a longer gig where you're working for over 1 year. And that helps you really get that experience and contextualize what you've learned in your first year and really what you're going to learn in your second year.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay.
I think someone has a question in the chat box. I'm just gonna go ahead.
Yes, no, it's we'll take all the questions
Okay,
once we're done with the
sure.
basics. Yeah, yeah, because the last 20 minutes we're going to be talking about. We'll take
Okay,
all the
yeah,
questions. And, yeah. So so the thing is, what are the steps? As in, how do you prepare for an essay, for that matter? And the thing is, like, how did you go about it? As in, can you tell us a lot more about how did Akshat prepare?
right.
Uh, yeah, so how did he prepare his profile? How did he build his profile? And how did he prepare for the essays? And
Right.
was he as in I mean, do you need a mentor for that matter? Do you need help from other places for
Right.
these processes?
Yeah, no, for sure. So in terms of the application for the Silver Scholars program, it's very similar to the regular MBA program. It's
Right.
pretty much the same. The only thing is obviously you don't have any full-time work ex yet, so you have to, that part of your profile is not scrutinized as much within the application itself.
Right.
But in terms of coming up with the essays and stuff, I think the most important thing, in my opinion, was really understanding where I am at in my life. Like what my career trajectory is and what I want to gain out of business school,
Correct.
and
Mhm.
what each business school can offer. So I
Okay.
think in that step is where really I feel like the value addition from IMS came in, because it really helped me contextualize that, all right, these are the business schools that seem to be a good fit for me.
Hmm.
And, at the end of the day, I think ADCOMs do a brilliant job.
Right.
Admissions committees do a brilliant job of,
Mhm.
of really putting together a class which fits with that business school very well.
Mhm.
So I think the key step is when you're coming up with the essay, right? You have to figure out, what is it that, you're going to get out of your business school experience.
Right.
uh, B, why are you a fit in that school? Like, what do you offer to that school, and what does that school offer you?
Correct.
And C, you have to just be like particular to the Silver Scholars. I think because we're so young in our sort of life, and because we're just starting out in our career,
Hmm.
I think a very specific type of person really gets in, and that's somebody who knows what they want to do.
Right.
You may not know exactly what it is that you want to do, but
Mhm.
you have sort of a general idea of how you want to organize and plan your life.
Right. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
it's also someone, because it's a difficult thing to do. So
Right.
you also have to, sort of show that you're able to handle adversities,
Right. Okay.
and really just sort of take things in your stride, and be flexible with how you want to handle things.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say being disciplined but not entirely regimented. I don't know if that makes complete sense,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
having a plan of what you want to do and being able to be flexible around that plan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, what efforts and best practices you're taking to come up with a strong application?
Yeah.
So also answer it from like exactly how you did it, so that
Yeah,
our MBA aspirants can actually take some cues from there, and it might just help them.
sure.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, when I started applying to business schools, obviously I
yeah,
was in the position where I'm sure a lot of people are right now,
yeah,
where
yeah.
I had no idea.
Correct.
Right. So I think, like, for me, it was A, doing a bunch of research, and B, going to the right people. So
Okay.
Sumit was actually Sumit worked pretty closely with me on my applications, and in
Mm-hmm.
terms of really helping me understand what is the personality and the culture of each business school, and
Mm-hmm.
where I think I would be a good fit. I think that is probably the most key aspect of it, because working hard on your scores, working hard on your profile, other than that, is obvious. Like, you have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to work as hard as you can for the GMAT. The higher your score is, the better it is. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, that's kind of an obvious thing.
Mm-hmm.
uh, you should try and get the job which suits what you want to do.
Okay.
Again, that you should anyway be doing. But I think when it comes down to the actual application,
Okay.
I actually was able to work with Sumit a bunch, and with Deepti as well, a bunch, on really understanding that, all right, like, these are the business schools that I think will be a good cultural fit for me. They're a good career fit for me.
Right.
And I think once you have that fit ready, then your application kind of writes itself, because once you know why a business school is a fit for you, then it's much easier to include that in your application, and you're not really, stretching it so much.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I think that is probably the best practice, in my opinion, that
Right.
you have to understand what is it that I want to do, what is the
Uh-huh.
kind of place that I want to be in,
Uh-huh.
and what is the personality of each of these business schools. Where am
Right.
I a good fit, essentially?
So how did Yale? I mean, how did you know that Yale is the right fit for you?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I spoke to
Three
Sumit.
things,
Yeah.
maybe, like
Sure.
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, number one, it was the community. Like,
Okay.
everything I've heard about SOM is that they are the nicest people ever,
Okay.
and
Okay.
they're always happy to talk to you. Like, I've had experiences, while I was at SOM, which
Uh-huh.
we'll probably get into, but like, where I literally cold emailed the CEO of this firm that I wanted to work with,
Uh-huh.
and he actually called me into his office in New York, and I was actually able to go there and talk to him, at like Park Avenue itself, which is like
Right.
insane.
Right.
And that's a big part of it. Like, for me, the biggest thing was I wanted to have a community around me that really engages, and like, doesn't just brush you aside, or doesn't just be like, all right, I'm done with business school, I'm going to move on with my life. They're more
Correct.
engaged
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
the current business school people.
Mhm.
Secondly, Yale, it had the personality of being a very nice place. Like, it had the personality of being a place where everyone's happy and everyone is just really looking to make a positive impact in the world.
Right.
But as a result of this, it also has a huge network in the impact investing space,
Okay.
which is where I'd like to be eventually in my life. So I think
Right.
for me, that was also a big factor, that I wanted to be in the network with people who can control all of this private capital,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
that's the space that I want to be working in.
Mhm.
And so those two things kind of just work together, that having, a really nice community of brilliant people, some
Okay.
of the most
Okay.
amazing people that I've ever met, and
Mm.
also the people who are in the field that I want to be in.
Okay. So, I mean, if you have another chance, say, to fill up the application form and to go through the entire process again,
Right.
apply to Yale again,
Yeah.
what would it what would that one thing be that you would like to change, and which would probably even probably catapult it to another level? I mean, it would have probably acted as a boost for your application form.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me particularly, this is again just
Yeah.
my sort of view of how it's gone.
Right.
I would definitely work on my resume a lot more when I
Yeah.
was sending it in,
Okay.
because I thankfully I got in, and then I realized that I hadn't really focused as much on getting my resume reviewed by people
Okay.
that I
Uh,
mean,
yeah.
and most
Yeah.
importantly, like putting my resume in a way that highlights all of my best skills. So I was
Right.
able to do that to a large extent. But
Mm-hmm.
when I got in is when I realized that all right, I'm now competing or just studying with people who worked for 5 years.
Right.
I have to really be able to match up to that,
Yeah.
and it's a difficult thing to realize going in. And I feel like yeah, if I could do it all over again, I would definitely uh, get a lot more opinions, come to you guys a lot more probably as well about just getting my resume in and being like, can you like just tell me everything that's wrong with this and how can I improve on that,
Okay.
and just keep doing that again and again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
obviously, I'm not
Okay.
unhappy with it. I got in, so I'm pretty happy. But yeah, I think that's
Um,
some place where you
ca-
can always improve.
can you tell a little bit about if say an aspirant has to prepare the essays, what are the things that one has to probably keep as in consider as in they need to go back and build up their profile and then fill that up in the essays or how to go about it.
So that's a good question.
Yeah.
Yale's essay has always been historically
Yeah.
very different.
Okay.
They I think talk about like your biggest commitment,
Right.
which for me was a very easy answer to fill up because I
Right.
had a story related to that. But I think the most important thing with any business school essay is you have to really just you can't go into it with an approach that all right, I'm going to write this essay in 5 days and then send my application in. That,
Right.
in my
Yeah.
opinion, more often than not, that doesn't work because
Okay.
you have to really introspect and really figure out that all right, again, where am I currently with my life, where do I want to be with my life, and how is this school going to help me get there.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot more introspection. More importantly, it takes a lot more actually engaging with people who are in the game essentially, right?
Right.
So I think
Mm.
for a lot of people who've already built up their profile,
Correct.
essay will be a task of linking all of those things together.
Mm.
For people who haven't built up their profile yet, I would say, maybe don't think about the essay, think about what you're going to do and let the
Yeah.
essay write itself. Uh,
Right.
but yeah, I think the most important thing again is just um, getting as engaged as possible and understanding what these different schools are about and what they're looking for, and
Right.
just letting the essay sort of back into it yourself and figuring out what is it that you can offer.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So, any particular advice to for the students, for the MBA aspirants who are applying to top MBA programs
Uh,
internationally? What all they should do right now? Like maybe 5 things they should keep in mind.
uh, 5 things is
Okay, 3 things.
sure. I would say
One thing.
research as much as you can, like get all the help that you can in understanding where you'd be a good fit. Because I mean, quite honestly, right at the end of the day, I don't know how they do this. I don't know what algorithm they use, but the adcom is always brilliant at putting together this class of people that really belong in a particular place. Like
Okay.
there's a class of about 350, 370 people at SOM this year,
Yeah.
and not a single person I've spoken to, I felt like, oh, they don't belong at Yale. Like each and every
Okay.
person I've spoken to has been like, oh, yeah, this person was definitely going to come here for business school.
Right.
No
Okay.
doubt in my mind.
Okay. Okay.
So it's just really about talking to as many people as possible, getting all the help you can,
Right.
uh, to really understand from a very personal context, which business school is a good fit for you. And I
Okay.
think once you have that in place, a lot of the everything else kind of becomes easier because then you have context for what you want to write in your essay. Then you have an
Right.
idea about what your strengths are, and
Mm.
just working on that part of it more, working on yourself more, and really developing your understanding of what is it that what like what is the personality of each business school and where do I
Right.
fit.
Mm. 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 Great. Great. Yeah. So now, tell me about. Now we'll move to the other bit, which is all about your experience at Yale. How was it? Like, was it? did that place surprise you, or yeah, what surprised you most about the business school, Yale?
Yeah,
Now we are going to talk about your life at Yale.
sure.
Yeah, please.
I mean, a lot of things surprised me. Yeah,
Like some funny stuff that's like maybe,
uh,
yeah, it
like,
was like a cultural shock or something.
yeah, for sure. So there's definitely a cultural shock. I
Okay.
think what probably surprised me the most about business school is how open people are to taking your opinion, even though you don't have an expertise in a particular
Right.
field.
Okay.
Right? Like I had never worked full time before. So I
Yeah.
went in really thinking that, oh, is my, like, if I try to express my opinion somewhere, are people just going to look at it and be like, yeah, no, that doesn't count?
Right.
But it was the exact opposite, right? Like people at the top business schools are just, so they're coming there to really engaged and be a part of like everything that goes on. And so
Right.
they're all very happy to talk to you about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I've been very happy. Like the past year of my life has been probably the one where I've grown the most.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the entire international student body. You just learn so much. Like my learning team and some of my closest friends. One of them is from Japan. Another one, she grew up in China.
Mm-hmm.
One from Texas, and
Right.
another one of them, a closer friend of mine, is from Colombia
Right.
and Austin.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
we just like it's you get this whole mix of cultures, and it's like a melting pot where you can really experience everyone else's cultures, and you grow a lot as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, on a professional level as well, like it's mind blowing because
So
like,
is the culture of the school more collaborative, or is it
absolutely,
competitive?
it's entirely collaborative. Like
Okay. So
at SOM, everyone is just like always looking to help you out and always looking to just work with you on whatever it is that you're looking to do.
mm-hmm.
And that was a very important thing for me. I went from a pretty competitive place, so I wanted to go to a place where I'm really able to collaborate with everyone else.
Right.
And they really made me feel like I was part of the community there.
Mm.
So that was probably the biggest thing. Like, New Haven, where Yale is located, is also like a college town essentially.
Right.
So it's really about like it's really just like being a part of a large campus. You're
Mm-hmm.
always going out and you're always like talking to people. You're always just you're always with friends, and it's just a great place to be.
Okay.
And I think the part that probably surprised me the most was there's this one time I was just talking to a friend of mine on campus,
Hmm.
and a Nobel laureate just walked past us. Like the Chancellor himself just walked past us, and both of us just
Right.
looked at each other and we're like, okay, yeah, this is something that both of us have never seen before. So
Mm-hmm.
just having access to that kind of a network is amazing.
Mm. Lovely. So so what does a typical day look like for a student? Again.
Hmm. It depends completely on how you want to lead your school life.
Okay.
For me, it was I'd have a few hours of classes every day, about 4 hours of classes, 4 to 5 hours of classes every day.
Mm-hmm.
I was also part of a few clubs. So I would, if there's a club meeting or something, I would go and attend that.
Mm-hmm.
There's always something going on, like on campus, like at the SOM campus or the greater Yale campus. There's always something going on.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
really, when it's like around 4 o'clock in the evening, you can choose, okay, do I want to go home? Do I want to prep for my interviews? Do I want to, get done with my assignments, my homework? Do I want to just chill? Or
Mm-hmm.
you have like thousands of options. Like there's probably a yoga session going on every day.
Correct. Yeah.
There's some kind of an event, a cultural event going on every single day. There's some kind of a career fair going on every day.
Right. Right.
You can
Right.
attend conferences. There's just so much to do. Uh,
Right.
it's a
Right.
little overwhelming. Like
Yeah.
the first 2 months at business school, like we were all just always tired because we're like, I want to go and do everything. I want to go for 2 class.
Nice.
And we just come back at home, like we come back home like 10:30, 11 in the night every night, just completely tired.
Yeah.
But yeah, business school is really what you make of it. Like there's never a lack of things to do.
Mm-hmm.
There's like recruiting fairs. I would go to New York every Friday
Mm-hmm.
just to
Oh,
meet a lot
okay.
of people. Yeah.
Nice.
So classes at SOM, just to answer one of the questions because it's relevant here. The SOM campus is not, yeah, it's a little further away from the greater Yale campus.
Right.
So it's this building called Evans Hall, which is like a huge, massive campus.
Right.
The greater Yale campus is about a 10-minute walk away from the SOM campus.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of the events, like because the entire sort of Yale community is so well knit together, uh,
Right.
a lot of the events will involve SOM as well as Yale.
Mm-hmm.
SOM students go for the Yale events all the time. Yale students
Right.
go for
Right.
SOM events.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's amazing.
Okay. So what role does the career services really play in helping find jobs? Because that's something that right now all aspirants must be.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a question that is they must be wondering about that. That's
yeah,
a pressing question for everyone. Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
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 So we have the CDO, which is the Career Development Office. So they will, from day one, start guiding you. Like they will help you prep your resume,
Right.
conduct multiple interview prep sessions, and they actually get in touch with these employers and stuff. So you'll have all the big banks, all the big consulting firms, all of them come to campus, give presentations, and start recruiting you. So
Right.
every week, I mean, obviously, right now there's nothing going on campus because
Okay.
of the virus,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
until the moment I left from there, uh,
Mm-hmm.
every week there's like 4 or 5 events where there's like
This is
three or
just
four.
a stopgap anyway. I mean, again, things
Yeah,
are going to be back
absolutely. Yeah.
in. Yeah. So yeah, it
There's
just
like 3 or 4 companies coming on
right.
campus every week. Like
Right.
you don't have a lack of choices in terms of the kind of places that you want to
Correct.
work at.
Correct.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
so there's companies coming in interviewing people every week. They're giving presentations and stuff across the board. Like and the CDO is always there. Like they have an advisor who sits every day from 11. Like I think at some time throughout the day
Okay.
on campus. They have the open desk, so you can go in if you didn't book an appointment. You
Right.
have your resume on hand. You can just go in and be like, hey, can you like help me with this part of it?
Hmm.
They're always happy to help.
Hmm.
They're open pretty much all day to go in and book an appointment, sit down with them, plan out what you want to do. And they're just always very, very, very involved. Like they're ready to help you at any point. Like you just have to book an appointment with them and then go down there and like for an hour, you can just sit down with them if you want every day
Hmm.
and just be like, all right, this is what I want to do. How do I go ahead and do this? And they'll tell you the exact people that you can get in touch with.
Okay.
We have a huge alumni directory, uh,
Right.
which we can just find their email IDs, shoot
Hmm.
them an email saying, hey, I'd like to grab coffee with you at this
Right.
particular time to talk about this. And yeah, the alumni is usually super involved. They're like happy to help you out. So yeah.
Hmm. So, how important? I mean, of course, networking is very important. But then again, do you think networking is probably the most important thing when it comes down to finding the right job, especially when it comes to when we are talking about international placements?
Uh, that's a tough question to answer because I think it depends on the
Right.
person entirely.
Right.
Uh, I'm sure there are people who just sent in an application and got a job.
Right.
But more often than not, especially in America, networking is at the top of that list. Like
Correct.
you
Yeah.
have to
Hmm.
make that connect. You have to really, talk to people.
Right.
And I think in America, they care much more about the cultural fit
Hmm.
rather than just your bare skills that you bring to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
So networking and just meeting the team that you're going to be working with and really engaging with them is
Right.
to me, it's been the most important part.
Of course. Hmm.
But also like because the field that I'm trying to recruit into is very network based.
Uh-huh.
So you have to really figure that part of it out. But yeah, I think networking is super important, and that's why most business schools, if I'm not wrong, they'll have 4 days of classes followed by one, like Fridays usually off at
Hmm.
especially at SOM because people have interviews to do, people have networking calls to go to. So I would go to New York every Friday just to meet with alumni and network with people.
Right.
And thankfully, New Haven is in Connecticut, which is about 2 hours away from New York.
Hmm.
So that was not a very difficult transit. It was like Borivali to Prabhadevi. Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
but
Put
yeah,
things on perspective.
definitely. Yeah. It's like essentially, but yeah, you're able to actually go to New York whenever you want and talk to
Okay.
people that you want to.
So was that also one of the reasons why, I mean, the location of a B school is very important when you're selecting a B school. You also look at like, okay, do I go East Coast, West Coast, where,
Yeah,
what? Yeah. So that plays a very important role, isn't it?
without a doubt, without a doubt. Like
Right.
I know a lot of people who got into schools on the West Coast as well as the East Coast.
Uh-huh.
And they just wanted to be near New York. which is
Okay.
why they chose Yale.
Uh,
Uh, there's a lot of people who want, like I know that wanted to really be in California, which is
okay.
why they moved there. And you know,
Right.
New York to California is like a huge distance. Like
Yeah. Yes.
uh, it's across the country, literally.
Right.
So that's a very important part of it that you have to consider. I
Right.
wanted to be close to New York because I want to work in the financial sector.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that was a pretty easy sort of decision to make because New Haven is so close. But yeah, if I was somewhere, you know, in maybe, I don't know, far away from it, uh,
Right.
somewhere in the Midwest or something, that would
Mm,
have been much more difficult.
right.
So I think that's definitely something you should have on your radar.
Yeah. So now that we've actually again started talking about how you selected your B school.
Yeah,
So this brings me to that other question. What? How? Can you tell us? Can you take us through a little bit through your interview experience, basically, with the B school with Yale?
sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Just
so
briefly, but
yeah,
yeah, just those
yeah.
steps.
In terms of my interview, so like again, the Silver Scholars interview is kind of different to a regular MBA interview. My interview was difficult to say the least. Like there was a lot of, you know, it was a difficult interview.
No.
They will really grill you in terms of understanding what it is that you want to do. And
As in, was it difficult for you, or is it always difficult for everyone?
no, it's not always. It really depends
Okay.
on who is interviewing you.
Okay.
Um, More often than not, I would say about 90% of the cases, right? For regular MBA applicants, the interview that all of my friends that I've spoken to, they've had very nice, like they've had very good interviews. Well, it
Okay.
was just like you know, if they were in India, it was a video interview. Otherwise, if they were in America, it was an in-person interview.
Right.
A second year or an admissions commissioner is interviewing you,
Yeah.
and just getting an understanding of what you're all about.
Correct.
In my case, it was a little bit different. It was a lot more difficult and a lot more stressful.
Okay.
Uh, but for 90% of the people, 95% of the people, the interview was really straightforward, where they just want to get a feel of who you are. So
Okay.
they want to really put a face to what you put on your application and
Mm.
want to just make sure that you can talk the talk.
Okay. So tell
Sorry.
me the difficult bit then.
Uh, yeah, I
What
mean,
was it? What was it that challenging bit about your?
yeah, my interviewer just like, because I was applying to the Silver Scholars program, right? They
Uh,
want to really test
uh,
whether you're able to handle curveballs. So I
okay.
got a lot of, sort of curveball questions, sort of difficult questions,
Mm,
which are intended to throw you off a little bit in an interview.
mm,
Thankfully, just I just went in going like, all right, let's like this. It was like a Hail Mary for me. I just went in like, yeah, all right, let's do this. So I wasn't thrown off by any of it,
mm-hmm.
and I handled it pretty well. But
Okay.
yeah, they want to really, I think most importantly, business schools want to see how you perform when you're in a situation where you're being tested.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, when you try and go and recruit once you're in business
Mm,
school, what
mm,
they're going to really be looking at is, especially companies, is how you're able to talk to people and how
mm-hmm.
you're able to really communicate.
Right.
Because
Right.
that is the one thing that an MBA needs to know how to do. It's communicate effectively.
Mm,
So that's
mm,
one thing that they wanna really see.
mm, mm. Right. Right. So all your attendees will take all your Q&As just in a bit. Before that, my colleague Param Das is going to talk about something very important for all the IMS CIE products that you can actually take a look at. Yes.
So, everyone, as you know, we have a few GMAT Live programs. So these are similar to the ones that have been taken by Akshat,
Mhm.
except that we are delivering them online. So we have our normal GMAT Live program, which is a 4-week program, and it's suitable for all GMAT aspirants. The next batch date is 24th April, and the subsequent batch date is 29th May. So this is a 4-week program with a fees of 41,580 and a 25% off waiver. And similarly, we have the comprehensive program for GMAT Live, which covers both classroom as well as admissions consulting. And this is suitable for those who seek comprehensive guidance in both testing and application preparation. Again, we have a 25% waiver on this program. And we are just recently launching our GMAT Advanced programs, which are 3 weeks programs. And these are primarily designed for test takers who are scoring 600 to 700 in the mocks and want to push their score up to a 740 or 750. So during these 3 weeks, we'll mainly cover 700 plus level questions, the higher level questions which are tested on the GMAT. And the next entry points for this program are 24th April and 29th May. And the fees is 14,999 for non-enrolled students. And we have a fees of 9,999 for enrolled students. And similarly, we have the comprehensive variant of this program, which covers both admissions consulting and test prep. And this again has a 25% waiver. So how do you enroll for all of these programs? Well, so this is the number that you can call to address any queries that you may possibly have. Or you can also email to us at cie@imsindia.com. And you can also visit our course page, that is imsindia.com/GMAT, for any GMAT related courses, and you'll find further details of our program information over there. And we are also doing a lot of stuff on social media. Yes, so we are running demo lectures, we are doing campaigns, webinars, and basically a whole bunch of information sessions, including foundation sessions, as well as advanced sessions. So you can follow our YouTube channel, our Insta channel, Facebook, and LinkedIn pages, or you can also visit these blogs on which you'd find articles related to test prep as well as consulting processes. So do take a note of this, blog spots and the web pages, and feel free to get in touch with us. Yeah, so with this, I'll hand it back over to Kalyani, who will go through the Q&A portion.
Thank you, Param, for that information. And okay, so Akshat, there are some questions for you. Many, I'll just, yeah. So I think some of them kind of missed out some of it, part of your interview, I think, because some of the questions are from there.
Right. Are you looking
so,
at
yeah, so I'm just asking you something. If I were to, so there is a person asking if I were to get selected to a deferred MBA program,
right.
would I get the same salary package and job position as my peers, given that I would not be having as much work X as them?
That's a good question. It depends on what part of your stage you're recruiting at. So for example, for me right now, going in without experience, I'm looking for a full-time job. Obviously, I can't expect the same kind of salary packages as my peers who have experience. But when I do finish my work X and come back to graduate, I will be expecting a similar salary, or a salary as competitive or even more, because then I'll have some rich quality work experience before I'm coming in. So I think in terms of, but again, there's no hard and fast rule. Like, it really depends on your skills as a networker, your skills as someone who's going out there and looking for these jobs. And the most important thing is, when you're looking for a full-time job in a deferred program, that is when you're graduating, you will have the experience. You will have 2 to 3 years of experience for the 2+2 programs. And for the Silver Scholars, you will have as much experience as you want, up to 5 years when you're graduating. So that's not something that's going to affect you in any way. I hope that answered your question.
We hope so as well. So what is your specialization in?
So SOM doesn't have any specialization. Our first year is an entire core, which has like perspectives. It's called the integrated curriculum. You should look it up. It's, very interesting, where basically we'll have courses like competitor, customer, innovator, the executive, investor, where basically they're teaching us different perspectives to look at business problems, and how, business problems are looked at from the eyes of a different person in the organization, and putting that all together. Our second year is entirely electives. So we don't have, I think they're coming up with a concentration in management science now, which is STEM designated. So if you want that STEM OPT extension, that's pretty useful. There's also, I think, a double degree now that they're offering in asset management. But obviously that'll be rolled out in a few years. But there's no concentration. You are free to choose the electives that you want. Like, you can take an interpretive dance elective, or you can take corporate finance electives. Like, it's completely up to you. I'm personally specializing as much as I can in private equity and finance because that's where I want to go.
So this is a Ayushi Kothare has asked this question: how strong profile does one need to get into such B schools? What could one do to build up that, like internships or research papers, or more of extracurricular activities?
Yeah, I think all of those, I mean, I personally didn't have much of a research background, so I can't speak to how important that is. I don't know. Um, but yeah, having good internships is super important. More than just the name brand of the internship, although the name brand is important, uh, you should be able to do really good work at those internships and get and how do I put this? Get someone who like works so well that there's someone there who's going to be able to vouch for you when they're writing recommendations. So, thankfully I had one of my associate directors who really took a liking to me and was able to write me a really nice LOR when I applied. So yeah, I think having a good internship is important, but working really hard at that internship is more important. Your scores, obviously, you need to work as hard as you can on your scores. As far as I know, there's no minimum GPA cutoff. But I feel like having a GPA above 3.5 is a strong place to start. Uh, Again, they're not going to penalize you for having a higher GPA, but they might penalize you for having a lower GPA. So just that's obviously something you need to work on. Uh, my GMAT score, personally, I think someone asked that in the chat box, was a 760. Um, Again, they don't have a concept of cutoffs in international business schools, but try to get a GMAT score which is at least close to or above the average for that business school, and they publish the averages just so you know where you stand within the applicant pool.
Right. Okay, this is what all things should be included in a profile to make it attractive to these schools. This again kind of answers. You just answered it. The
Right.
two previous 10th, 12th scores matter here, or is it the GMAT score that's more important?
I think more than just what your scores are. Uh, I feel like in my opinion the trajectory of how you've gone is also is really important. You need to show like a consistent record of all right, I've been good at what I do for a
Hmm.
long period of time, uh, to really maximize the chances to get into most B schools. So yeah, I think that is probably the most important thing, that like they don't have a cutoff like, oh, you need to get above 80% in your boards, but they just want to see that you've been academically well to do, or you've been performing pretty well academically over a long period of time, because then they know that all right, like this is someone who works hard and can study.
Mhm. Uh, I'm doing my undergrad in psychology. Will there be an issue if I want to shift to finance?
uh
It's a,
that's a yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people who come in from a completely different background and have now landed. I mean, these are regular MBA
yeah.
students, but
Okay.
they've come in from a completely different background. Like I know someone who had a startup and she was working in communications, who has now landed in an investment banking associate job.
Okay.
So they train you completely. Like you don't need to have a finance background at all if you want to go into finance. Like the finance clubs and the investment banking club at any business school that you're in will train you very well in what you need to know. I had a finance background, so I didn't have to take up all of that training personally, but they do offer it. Like from start to finish, they will help you out completely. So you don't necessarily need to come from that kind of a background to have to want to work there.
Okay, so there's another one. How were you able to decide what's the personality of the B schools? I think
Uh,
you did mention, and
yeah,
there's another one coming along with it. Did you start this research before or after you took the GMAT?
right. That's a good question. So for me, I started that research pretty much after I took the GMAT. Because until then, as I think most people are in that stage right now, until then I was just focused on all right, GMAT लिखना है, GMAT लिखूंगा. Like I was very focused on just getting the GMAT out of the way. Um, in terms of understanding the personality of each V school, I did a lot of my own personal research. And I think more importantly, I was able to talk to, Sumit and Deepthi, who really helped guide me in terms of, all right, like, this is your career goal. Uh, people from these schools have graduated on to do these kind of things. So this makes sense for you. And just talking to alumni as well, like they'll get you in touch with alumni. You can find them on LinkedIn. But really talking to alumni and understanding what the culture is like at the schools. And yeah, I think talking to people who are in the business and know how things work, I think it's just really important to engage as much as possible to understand the culture of each business school.
How about educational loans?
Yeah, I mean, most international students do take on pretty substantial loans. Top business schools, you have their own loan providers, so that's not something you have to worry about taking it on in India if you don't want to. Uh, but yeah, educational loans are something that most people do take on. But it's again, you're taking on leverage to go into business school, and then you usually, hopefully, come out with a good salary to show for it. So people usually pay those off in about 3 to 4 years on average, as far as I know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, can you please, okay, this is something that you've covered, but you could just talk a little bit more. I think, a lot of people are asking this question.
Sure.
Can you please give insights to what kind of questions you were asked in the interview? Maybe, you give a very generic answer, maybe, a little bit
Sure.
more like,
Yeah, I mean, I can't reveal the questions I was
right.
asked, but the questions I was asked were really around my resume, and they were really around my career goals and just sort of drilling deep into what it is, why do I have those career goals. So, when I say I want to work in this particular field, or I want to work in the private capital field, why is it that I want to do that? Am I actually passionate about it? And if I'm passionate, why am I passionate about it? Like, you need to be able to have that story of like, all right, this is why I want to work here, and this is the value that I think I can add. That's one thing. B, they're definitely going to ask you about why have you chosen this business school to apply to. So you need to have your research ready in terms of what are the things about that particular business school that really appeal to you and what you can offer them in terms of a value proposition. Um, yeah, they'll also ask you, like, I was personally asked a lot about the projects that I had done with my social enterprise. But of course, that will depend on each person. They will drill down deep into your work experience and try to figure out what is it that you've been doing and whether you're legit essentially. Uh, but yeah, just be confident, go in there and like, uh, I think as long as you know everything that you're talking about, you should be fine.
Hmm. Does community work matter a lot for profile building if I'm looking for a deferred program?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, every business school wants people who've been engaged outside of just their career.
Mm,
This is something I forgot to mention before.
mm,
So
mm.
thank you for bringing
Yeah.
that up.
Mm,
But absolutely, like, and I think more than just having some kind of NGO work on your resume, I would say it's important to find, all right, what is the cause that I'm passionate about? Like, what can I, what, like, they'll be able to see through it if you're just trying to put some random NGOs on your resume. Like, you need to find out something that, all right, what is the value that I can add to society, and how can I go about doing that? Like, you need to put in the work essentially, and figure out what is your skill set and what are your interests, and how can you sort of leverage your skill sets into your interests and do that in a sort of uh, socially impactful way essentially. I know these were a lot of buzzwords, but uh, that's essentially how you have to do it. Like, you have to really be able to like figure out what am I passionate about, and what kind of work am I going to do in the community relating to that.
mhm, mhm. Are there good opportunities if one has to come back to India? This is, yeah.
Yeah, that's I mean, obviously, right? Like, if you've got a strong network, you will find Yale grads, HBS grads, Columbia grads all over the world. So there's opportunities everywhere. Obviously, India, there's you have the IIMs and stuff, so it's a little bit difficult to crack into if you want to come back to India. But it's not impossible. Like, I am currently also recruiting in India, and I have had some pretty great opportunities because it's not easy to get into these B schools. So that's a signaling in and of itself that you're a top applicant. So yeah, I think there's opportunities around the world. Um, I think you should probably look a lot more global as well, though. But if you do want to come back to India, there's a lot of people who do that.
Mhm. Okay. This is something which is, well, Okay, there is another question. Just a minute. Yeah. What should be the average CGPA one should have?
Again, I mean, you have to really look at the schools that you're applying to and their averages and try to figure out around that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say aim for the highest you can get. Yeah, like don't don't try and hold yourself to a lower number. But
Mm-hmm.
ideally, I would say like 3.5 and above is a strong place to start.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Uh, but again, there are people who don't have that and who get into the top business schools. There are people who do have that and don't get it. So your CGPA is really a very tiny part of your application. But obviously, it's something that you have to spend 3 years working on, 4 years working on. So don't ignore it, but that's not the be all and end all.
Since now you are part of the Silver Scholars, can you tell us how challenging it is, and would you recommend it to someone? Obviously, you
Yeah,
would.
I would definitely recommend it to anyone who can get into it and like can do it. It's challenging though. Like I'm not gonna lie, like it's because you have to like in terms of a recruitment perspective, you have to really be able to lead it yourself and go out and talk to people and be like, hey, I'm 21 doing my MBA. Like people are pretty surprised by that. You have to really be able to like build that story and be like, all right, this is why I am worth it and this is why you should hire me.
Mhm.
Uh, it's challenging also from a perspective of like you're coming in without any work experience and you're with people who've had like 3 4 years of work experience, so you really have to be able to adapt very fast to that kind of an environment. Like I like most of my friends are 30 years old. Like most
Yeah.
my closest friends in business school are like 30 years old, 35 years old. My roommate was 33
Okay.
and married, and I was 21. I'm 21. And so it's obviously there is a cultural shock as well, because the kind of things that we're thinking about at 21 is not the same as what 28 30 year olds will be thinking about. Um, so it's just, but it's a lot of fun. I think you grow a lot as a person because you really figure out what's important in life, and most importantly, from a career perspective as well, most 21-year-olds I know will be thinking about the next 2 3 years and being like, all right, I'll get by. But when you get to a later stage in your career, like most of my friends have, they really start thinking about 10 12 15-year plans. So I think that's super important from a career perspective. uh, yeah, it's challenging. It's not easy, but I would definitely recommend it to anyone who can do it.
Um, okay. How difficult? Oh, with reference to okay. How difficult is it to stay there given the visa situation?
Um, I
So
honestly like, yeah, it's the visa situation is very fluid. Let's see who wins this election. Um,
yeah.
I don't know. Like as of now, the visa situation is, if you get an employer that sponsors, they will sponsor your OPT. Um, and you do get a few years. And I think a lot of schools now have STEM programs as well, so you get that STEM OPT extension.
Right.
But that is something that you have to keep in your mind and keep on your radar, which is why you should probably, you know, try and recruit everywhere as possible. Look at the Middle East, look at America, look at every place you can. Because as an international student, it is definitely difficult, but again, it's not impossible. And especially if you are looking at the big firms, right? The big investment banks, the big consulting firms, they don't differentiate really between international students and domestic American students. So if you get into the top consulting firms, the top investment banks, they'll sponsor your visa, and once you get in there, they'll move you around within their firm. So
Mhm.
it's not really much of an issue.
Right. 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 So, okay, I believe we have answered all the questions, all the relevant questions, and there is one by Ria Singh, which is about how much did you get in your first full-length mock, and how many days, months did it take you to get above 750? Well, Ria, stay tuned. Come back on April 22nd April with Akshat. Akshat is going to talk about specifically about how to score 760 and above and on your GMAT. Okay, so stay tuned for that. And thank you very much, Akshat, for answering all my questions and answering so many
Absolutely.
other questions. And we'll see you again on 22nd April.
Absolutely.
So,
Happy to. Like,
um,
if any
yeah,
of you
it
guys
was
have more
lovely.
questions, just feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah,
Uh, I'm happy to answer any questions that like anyone has.
sure. All right, great. Thank you very much, Akshat.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah, see you again. Bye. All the best.
thank
Bye.
you. Thank you.